What is the psychrometric chart used for, and what is it?
So a psychrometric chart is a tool used by mostly mechanical engineers, and it's basically to determine the 7 different properties of air. So you would use it to try and figure out what's wrong with the space. Is it too humid? Is it too hot, too cold? And from there, you can kind of assess what's going on in the room and increase different levels of certain things to get your room to a comfortable zone.
And how many dimensions of the chart are there?
So there's 7 different dimensions. So the first one, there's enthalpy, dew point temperature, dry bulb temperature, specific volume, wet bulb temperature, humidity ratio, and relative humidity.
And what do each of them do? Like, what do they mean?
So I'll start with dry bulb temperature because that's the temperature you'll see on your thermostat when you walk in a room. So that's basically just the temperature without the moisture in the air. So air has moisture in it. And when there's no moisture in it, that's your dry bulb temperature. And then when you get the wet bulb temperature, that's when moisture collects inside of that air. And when that gets to 100%, that's called your saturation line, and that's when it starts to condensate. And at that point is also the dew point temperature. So that's when you'll see a cold glass in a hot environment start to sweat. So there's enthalpy, which is the measure of heat energy in the air due to sensible and latent heat. And so sensible heat is basically your dry temperature, and latent heat is the moisture in that air. So there's also absolute humidity, and that's the vapor content of air. And the last one, I believe, is humidity ratio, and that is just the ratio of how humid it is to the temperature of the air.
Can you give a real-life example?
Yeah, so I was doing a project for a lab professor in one of the buildings that we do work on, and so he worked on ophthalmology. So in that, he needed more humidity in his room because his eyes would get dried out when he was doing his research. So it was very low humidity, and usually you want to get rid of humidity for most comfortable environments, but he needed to add humidity in order for him to do his research. So I used the chart, and we didn't want to change the temperature, so we took the temperature at, say, 70 degrees dry bulb and 20% relative humidity, and we wanted to increase that from 70, keep it at 70 and get the relative humidity of 50. So in order to do that, if you look at the chart, you go across to the humidity ratio, and so all we did was add grains of moisture per pound of dry air, and we did that by injecting steam into the air. And that increased it from 20 to 50% relative humidity without changing the temperature.